Illusion, Chapter 4. The next morning, Liam awoke to a blinding light. He slowly got up and took in his surroundings. He looked at his right arm and remembered the fight from the previous evening. He grabbed the book and looked at the map. He saw Nikki still at her home. Relieved, he closed the book shut and went to his room to change. He took the gauntlet off and stared at it for a minute. He couldn't believe that something so plain could hold so much power. He just tossed it off to the side onto his futon and quickly changed. Again, the last words from his mother were racing through his mind. Find the other goddesses. They will help you with whatever you may need. He had no idea who he had to find, but he was sure he would find his answer in the rest of the stuff his mother tried to hide from him. After putting on his socks and shoes, he headed out to try to meet up with his friend before she left for school. Not bothering to grab his books or school bag, he headed out the door and headed down an alley that connected their streets. He used this alley every time he would want to hang with her. It was just barely wide enough for a small car to get through. It was also surprisingly clean. Usually he would have to dodge trash cans and dumpsters, but since he was visiting during a school day and trash pickup was on the weekend, he could see straight to the next block. This made it that much easier to catch Nikki before she normally leaves. He got to the end and made a right turn, and her house was the second from the end. Every house in that area was pretty much the same, with the same floor layout and the same number of floors. He would sometimes feel like he was in a dull old town. Only the interior and exterior designs gave a small sense of diversity. Just as Liam got to her front steps, Nikki was already closing and locking her door. "What are you doing here?" She was shocked to see him there so early. She was also the one that would usually meet up with him. "Why aren't you wearing your school uniform?" She eyed him up and down to make sure she wasn't seeing things. "Also, we need to talk about what happened to you last night." "There is no time for that right now." Liam stopped her before she could finish. He grabbed her hand and began to lead her down and back through the alley. We will be skipping school today. There are more important matters to attend to." Nikki was quiet as she was dragged all the way back into Liam's place. He pulled her through the door and back into the den. "We have to look for anything with an address in these boxes." Nikki didn't have time to say anything, as Liam had quickly made his way back upstairs and back up into the attic. He pulled a few more boxes down and sat them in the den with the others. Most of the stuff looked like normal junk to the both of them, but Liam was not taking any chances. He had questions, and he was determined to get them answered one way or another. "So what exactly happened last night? I mean, I am sorry I left you, but something didn't feel right." Nikki was rummaging through her specified box, but wasn't paying much attention. Liam had just ignored her and continued looking. "Aha!" Liam held up a small address book. Nikki immediately stopped what she was doing to look at what Liam had found. She saw an ordinary black address book. To her, it didn't seem special compared to the other book they found yesterday. She thought that they would have found something more extravagant. Either way, she watched as Liam opened the book and flipped through its pages. All were blank except one. Just a few pages from the back, the name of a shop was scribbled, Felicity's Antiques. He didn't see an address, but he knew how to find out where it was located. He shot up and ran to the kitchen to grab a phone book. He brought it back in the den with him and slammed it onto the table in front of the couch. He flipped it open and began flipping through. A, D, E, F. Okay, now to find the name. Felicity. Nikki just sat there and watched as Liam searched in earnest. Fay. Here we go. Felicity's Antiques. 2245 Green Spring Lane. They both looked at each other and knew just how far it was. "Since it's on the other side of the city and nearly half of the day has passed, why don't we head out early tomorrow?" Nikki got up and instinctively brushed off her legs. "Besides, tomorrow is Saturday and we don't have school tomorrow." Liam just smiled and nodded his approval. "Now, if there's nothing left to do, I would like to go home and try to explain why I was absent to my parents." With that, she walked out the door. Liam didn't really bother to clean up the mess right away. He headed straight upstairs to take a quick shower. He forgot to take one earlier that morning as he had so much on his mind. He still felt that way, but not as much. In his room, he tore off all of his clothes, grabbed the towel that hung off the back of his door, and quickly wrapped up. Before he heading to the bathroom, he picked up the gauntlet and took another hard look at it. He shook his head back and forth, trying to take in all of the reality. So my mother is a goddess. She is powerful, and there is another world out there that most are unaware of. He tossed it back on the futon and headed out to the bathroom. Once inside, he closed the door. In the mirror that was attached to the door, he saw cuts and bruises that he hadn't noticed before. He figured that with all the fighting he did, there was no time to. He was about to start the water when he heard something pass by the small window. It was quite loud, but he just passed it off as a small bird. He turned the water on and heard it again. Stopping the water, he took a peek out the window. Even though it was just after midday, there was a flock of geese swooping back and forth down the alleyway. He immediately got a bad feeling and rushed back out to his room. His hunch was right. Just outside of his window, he saw a pig creature trying to break in. He grabbed the gauntlet and put it on. His towel was quickly replaced by the outfit he had on yesterday evening. This time, though, he could not get the sword to appear. The monster smashed the window and made its way in. Not wanting to waste any more time, he grabbed the closest thing to him, which was sadly his television. He tossed it, knocking the monster over. Taking this opportunity, he grabbed a clean pair of clothes from his dresser and shut the door as he made his way out to the hallway. Downstairs, he was greeted by two more of those nasty things that had busted the front door down. He had to get out at all costs. He jumped over the little bit of railing and dodged each of their attacks as he made his way to his bag. He stuffed the clothes in his bag and rushed out the door. What awaited him, not even he could believe. It was as if the sun had already set. The massive amount of geese filled the sky. They were flying around in a circle, and to him it looked like they were awaiting a command. He didn't wait to find out as he rushed towards the alley that connects his and Nikki's streets. He didn't bother to look back, but he could hear the smashing of windows and crashing of furniture being tossed about. At the end of the alley, he saw more of those pig monsters. He ducked behind a couple of trash cans just as they turned around. Psst! He heard a noise coming from behind him. He turned around to see Nikki on the other side of the fence. Hurry up and follow me. She quietly opened the gate and let Liam in. Only when we are safe will we be able to talk about this mess. She didn't give him time to answer as she led him through the backyards. It was clear there, so Liam knew that they were only focusing on his home. Well, what had remained of it anyway. They had eventually made it to the back of the end house, and in the middle of the yard sat a manhole. For years, everyone thought it was stupid that a manhole was randomly placed there. Nevertheless, today Liam and Nikki were happy. As quietly as they could, both pulled with all their might. The cover slowly came off, releasing a pungent odor. In the distance, they heard squealing and footsteps. They wasted no time. Nikki jumped down first and made a surprisingly quiet splash. Liam slowly followed after. He crawled down so that he could close the manhole after him. After he was sure it was shut, he dropped the rest of the way down. The only light was the beams coming from the cover. Now what? Liam could just barely make out Nikki's face. I should have brought, but he was cut off as he was blinded by the bright light that came from the flashlight he now saw Nikki carrying. I bet you think you're real funny. I don't think, I know. She couldn't help but giggle a little bit. Anyways, we need to get out of this area. She pulled out a map that Liam didn't even notice she was carrying either. Nikki turned the map to fit her direction and then plotted her course. First, we need to make our way a mile north and about a quarter mile west. She pointed the flashlight forward to show the directions they needed to take. When we reach that point, we'll be right underneath the gas station, hopefully behind it. She hurried off and Liam followed after. The water was shallow, so they didn't need to worry about that slowing them down. They finally came to a split, which meant that they had reached the first point. Nikki pointed the light down both passageways. Okay, there's nothing coming from the east tunnel. Not much further. They both turned left and continued on. However, just as they thought they were in the clear, they heard the sloshing of water behind them. Thinking they were being followed, Nikki turned the flashlight off and grabbed a hold of Liam, and then the wall. Both of them felt their way the rest of the way. Once Nikki was sure they had made it, she turned the light back on for a quick second and pointed it up. They were right under the manhole. She urged Liam to climb first so that he could push the cover open. As Liam was finally moving it, the sound was getting closer. Moreover, Nikki could hear the familiar snorts. She was right behind him as she forcibly pushed him up and out. She then quickly pushed the cover back on and then looked for something to cover it. That was when she saw it and ran over to a blue rolling dumpster. It was nearly empty, but it still had a bit of weight to it. "Help me push this over the manhole," she grunted as she tried pushing herself. Still not speaking a word, he helped her push the dumpster. Once it covered it, they both ran along the back alleyway that was connected to the gas station. As they got further away, the gauntlet changed back, and so did Liam's clothes. He was now in nothing but a towel. "Don't look, I have to change." Liam caught Nikki blushing as she turned around. He reached into his bag, and luckily his clothes were still dry. "So what was up with that? I thought you were just in a costume to look cool." She had to force herself not to look. "I'll tell you later, when we reach the antique shop. For right now, we need to try and avoid our unwanted friends while heading to the other side of the city." He had left the gauntlet on just in case they ran into a problem. "Now let's go." They got to the end of the alleyway. Liam slowly peeked out into the street. "Okay, I see nothing both ways, so I say we take a chance. I have a better idea." She began tearing his shirt and making Liam look more roughed up than he already was. "Now we walk up to the first house, knock on the door, and tell them a sob story." She did just that. He was right behind her as she knocked on the door. A portly man answered. "What do you want?" "Sorry to disturb you, sir, but my friend here was in a fight, and I'm trying to get him home. He lives on the other side of the city, right by Felicity's Antiques." She gave a really worried look in the hopes that the man would fall for it. The man looked between the two and sized them up. "Fine, give me a minute." He shut the door and reappeared a few seconds later. "Now why are you out of school right now?" He walked over to an old two-door pickup truck and only placed the key in the door. "I need to know." He got permission to go home, and I offered to help. Nikki pulled Liam over as if he could barely walk, and Liam just played along. "Do you have any other questions?" Nikki looked through the windows over at the man. "No, but he has to sit in the back. It's always unlocked." He got into the driver's side and started the vehicle while waiting. Liam and Nikki tried their best to make it seem that he was seriously injured. Nikki helped him up. He sat flat against the passenger window, and Nikki got out and walked over to the passenger side of the truck. Once in, the man immediately pulled off, and Nikki rushed to get her seatbelt on. "Sorry to ask you to do this." Liam was trying with all his might to yell loud enough for the man to hear. "It's fine. I wasn't doing much anyway." He slowed down and stopped at a red light. "So what was the fight about, if you don't mind me asking?" "My mother," Liam had to yell again halfway through as the light turned green and the truck began to move. "I don't feel comfortable telling you anymore." "That's fine. I didn't think you would. At least I tried." The man stopped at another light, but this one was different. The red light was stuck. It was then that Liam noticed a strange fog rolling in towards them. Well, that was what he thought until it got close enough to get a good look. The large flock of keys had somehow found them. Liam urged the man to drive through the light, but he refused to move. You may not drive, but I do. I'd rather not have a ticket and mark on my license." That was when Nikki looked back and saw how close they were. She reached over and stepped on the gas pedal. Sensing the danger of the bats, the gauntlet changed once again. Not only did the light from the transformation chase off the keys, it also shocked the man, which then made him swerve a bit and then stop. "What in the goddess's name is going on? What was that light, and why are your clothes different?" The man turned around and expected an honest answer from Liam. Liam faced the man and met his gaze. "I promise to tell you when we get to where we need to go, but right now you need to drive like the wind and not look back." Both saw trust in each other's eyes and returned to their original positions. The truck pulled off and was now going nearly twice the speed as before. When there was enough distance between them and the bats, the gauntlet reverted back. This time the man was unfazed by it. They had no other obstacles in their way. This was surprising to all three, as they had finally realized how dead the streets were. Cars lined the curbs, but no one else was walking around. Not caring, the man continued on. By the time they reached their intended destination, the sun was beginning to set. Liam jumped out of the back while the man and Nicky slowly got out of the truck. Okay, now tell me what is going on. The portly man had placed a hand on Liam's chest in the hopes that he would stop, but he continued on. Just follow us and you'll find out. He walked up to the door of the antique shop and slowly pulled it open. We don't know much ourselves, but that's why we came here. Now, if there aren't any more questions, we should head inside. Liam headed to the door and watched as Nicky and the driver followed after. Can I help you? A young woman's voice could be heard in the back of the shop. Are you Felicity? My mother Heather sent me to find you. Liam looked around and saw things that he never knew existed. He saw chairs that looked more like torture devices and large bowls decorated with various creatures. It rather creeped him out a bit. He turned and almost ran into a woman that was standing right in front of him. Liam? She gave him a fairly large hug. My, have you grown? You wouldn't remember me because the last time I saw you, you were just an infant. She walked over to the front window and flipped the open sign to close. She then motioned all three to the back. Now that you're here, your mother's suspicions were correct. I'm also guessing that she went back to the heavens, right? Liam just nodded. Felicity walked over to a locked drawer. It was the only locked one on the wall of drawers that surrounded it. Felicity took a key from her pocket, unlocked the drawer, opened it, and pulled out a large brown book. Before I get started, I must see what enemies you have seen. She handed the book over to Liam and eyed the gauntlet as he took it from her. As he took it from her. Now try to remember everything you have seen up until you walked in. Once you feel you have remembered most or all, open the book. Liam closed his eyes and concentrated as hard as he could. 2 minutes later, he decided he was ready. He opened the book and saw a list appear with a small moving image just left to the names. The list consisted of Moblin, Stalfos, Geese, Deku Scrub, and King Scrub. Felicity looked shocked. You were attacked by Deku Scrubs and their king? Liam nervously nodded a yes. Please tell me you didn't kill the king. Well, we were being attacked and my mother didn't say anything about it. Liam looked at Felicity and hoped that she would believe him. I had a feeling. Felicity walked over to a desk, took another large book out, and slid it on the top of the desk. Luckily, I can fix this issue. Sadly, it will take some time. She walked back over to Liam. Now for you, I bet you have no clue as to your destiny, do you? She placed a hand on his shoulder. I think you all should sit. This will take a while.